Thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome you to this very special evening as Mr. Stubb presents his capstone, and then later the board members are going to be doing his evaluation. And we're looking forward to having a great time tonight. So at this time, I will call the meeting to order. And please notice that all board members are present as well as the superintendent. Before we begin, though, would you join me in a moment of silence? Thank you very much. You will stand and join me in saying the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, you see the agenda before you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All right, Mr. Hurt made the motion, Mr. Query made a second. All in favor, let it be known by the lifted hand. And the agenda is adopted. And a moment we've been waiting for. So with your all, it's yours.
With your all's permission, I'm going to move around. It's a little bit easier for me to address you all that way. It's okay. I'd like to start by just sharing something that I don't think anybody else will ever be able to say. When I was working at Kentucky Department of Education, you're frequently assigned contracts that you have to work. And one of the contracts that I worked while I was at KDE was the new superintendent training contract. I don't think there'll be anybody else who can ever say that they worked that contract and then had to fulfill the contract once they got into a position. But it's kind of been a neat perspective to see it from the angle of KDE and then to see it from the perspective of a new superintendent. And from KDE's perspective, you can never imagine what this really looks like because all you see is some paper and some people. You don't see the experiences. And so I'll tell you as I start that this has been, well, I didn't know exactly what it would be like when I stepped into the responsibility and working through the new superintendent training. It's been a tremendous support throughout this year. It would have been a tremendous support in a normal year, but in a year like this, it's been that much more important. So tonight, what I'm going to do is just share some information. Most of it you'll be familiar with. It won't be shocks to you by any stretch of the imagination because you've been part of it. On your desk, you have some information that you can follow. The PowerPoint that I'm going to do is in the back. You have some additional information there, including my PGP with evidences, also my LPI that you all took part in back in the fall. So all of that information is there for you to refer back to anytime that you would like to, anytime you need to. We were talking a little bit before things started, and I'll introduce some folks to you in just a second, but Matt Moore was sharing that his board has continued to ask him to do a mini version of the capstone each year. And that may be something that you all choose to do as well. So let's just go ahead and jump into this, work our way through. For me, maybe the most important slide is the first one that you're going to see because it's an opportunity for me to acknowledge a bunch of people. If I started at the bottom, the small print down there, I would tell you that this year doesn't happen without a whole bunch of other people. There's nothing that I was going to do this year to make this year any form of a success without just a ton of folks. And it starts with you all. A little over a year ago, you gave me an opportunity to accept this position. And at this point last year, I wasn't your superintendent, but I was serving in a capacity as an advisor. You all were gracious enough to allow me to start at that level to start looking at what might work for a year like COVID. And so first and foremost, none of the other people would I be saying thank you to without you all giving me that opportunity. So I appreciate that. I hope over the course of the next few years, you find that it was a good decision on your part, because I feel like it was a good decision on my part. My central office staff has heard me say this, and I mean this completely. They're not the biggest group, but I wouldn't trade them for anything. If you told me that I could have twice as many, but I couldn't have them, I'd take them over the twice as many. So the folks who've hired here, when it comes to that group, have done a tremendous job, because nothing that happened this year happened in isolation. It took people who said, we'll accept that crazy idea that he has and see if we can't make it work somehow. And that's what they did. I'd be up a creek if it wasn't for people like that who made things happen for us. And then the principals in the district, they took on a responsibility. And I will tell you, I believe in many cases, the job that a principal has is much tougher than the job that I have. Because I have moments where I can step away from something if I need to. Principal can't. Principal's in the middle of something all the time. And you have 5 principals in the district who work very, very hard to try to make the best things happen for kids that they can possibly make happen. And I used to joke with people, the last question I would ever ask if I was interviewing a prospective assistant principal was, can you make me look good? And that sounds really arrogant, but it's not. Because if they're committed to something like that, everybody's going to look good. And our principals make you look good. They make me look good, and I appreciate that from them. Certainly, students and parents, you don't do a year like this without them having some confidence and trust in the decisions that you're making. So I appreciate what they allowed us to do in our community. I mean, if you think back to the fall, we had signage up welcoming us back on that first day when we were trying very desperately to get back into school. And there were people running around everywhere, excited about seeing buses on the road. And so they've been on our side the whole way through. Our community has said, we're going to make this work. Now, that doesn't mean they've liked everything. And I'd be disappointed if they did, right? Because we need a little bit of tension to keep us challenged. So again, I appreciate the community. And then, as I was referencing earlier, the new superintendent training program, Dr. Fred Carter, to my right, to your left, is my executive coach. And one of the neat things about him is he's done, we were talking beforehand, every sitting superintendent has been through his tutelage. So he knows what's going on. There was never a time that I reached out to him that he didn't have an answer. There was never a time that he came to visit that he didn't bring a great idea. And a lot of the things that you see are simply because I listened to him. And sometimes that's the most important characteristic any of us can have. It's the ability to listen. So I appreciate Dr. Carter. Matt Moore was my mentor. And one of the things I really appreciate about Matt was when I was in that role of learning the responsibilities before taking the role, he called immediately and set up a meeting with me, spent a couple hours with me. I wasn't a superintendent yet, wasn't in that role, but he didn't waste time. He brought me in, we sat down in his office, and we went through a litany of things to think about. But then he turned me loose, and he engaged anytime I wanted to engage, but he didn't turn it into something that I had to engage with him on a reoccurring basis. And to me, that's what a mentor is. Somebody who makes it possible for you to do things and then answers your questions when you need it. But they're not standing over you, making sure that you're doing it their way. So I appreciate Matt and what he did with that. And there are other folks connected with that that did a tremendous job. I'll always be indebted to the cadre that I'm with. We didn't have the same type of year that other cadres had, but we're still connected to each other, and we still contact each other and say, what are you doing with this? How are you going to make that one happen? And I can do that with somebody like Matt, who is experienced and knows what's going on, even though he might not know anything more about COVID than I did. But he at least knew the structures and the textures. And so I appreciate that. And then my wife is sitting back there, and I don't know why she would want to put up with the decisions that she's had to make. I tell people all the time, she's really smart, only made one bad choice in her life. And so she's had to live with that one for a long time. But she's, when I go home, It's not like I go home and have to answer 10,000 questions about what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean she's not interested, but she lets me do what I need to do. And without somebody like that at home, and I think all of you know that from experiences that you've had, if you don't have a spouse who's supporting you, it makes your life that much tougher. So I know I've spent a lot of time on this page, but to me, this is probably the most important page. Nothing that I'm going to show you after this happened without those people. And so I appreciate you letting me have the opportunity to talk about that for a second. I want to share with you that one of the things that you didn't ask me to do, but one of the things that I needed to do was find areas for growth. And so there were a couple of areas out of the leadership challenge that I really felt like were important for me to address. One of them was inspiring a shared vision, because if what I said a second ago is true, that you don't do anything without other people, then if they don't have the same vision, then we can end up being in opposition with each other. Instead of pulling together, we're pulling apart. So that was an area I felt that I needed to work to address. And we'll talk about some of the ways that we've done that. And then another one is encouraging the heart. I'm probably not the world's most people person. Mr. Hurt was on the hiring committee when I came as a principal to Garrard County. And one of the things that I said to that committee is, I'm not a great people person, but because I know that about myself, I'll try to pay attention to that. And so that was another area that I felt like I had to pay attention to this year. So again, while this wasn't something that you asked of me, it was something that I wanted to make sure I was paying attention to. You all know the superintendent standards, so I won't walk back through those with you by any stretch of the imagination, but that's what you're going to evaluate me on. That's kind of what we're going to walk through a little bit today. In the area of strategic leadership, you guys know that we are in the middle of a strategic plan development right now. We feel like it's a critical decision for us as a district. It should be the guider for us. And when we announce to you all the vision and the mission and ask you guys to approve that, we want that to become part of the common vernacular within the district, within our community, within everything that we do. And so that's part of being strategic. You all have allowed us to hire a PR position that we think is going to be critical moving forward, particularly in figuring out how to deal with 563. We're going to continue to work through the development of a style guide so that people know when something comes out from Garrard County, it's high quality, and we've done it in a very right way. Our advisory councils will be much more effective this coming year, because it's hard for an advisory to do something through a virtual lens. But we'll start bringing them in, and we'll continue to work on the facilities plan that you all have been a part of. Obviously, strategically, we're working with the ESSER funding to make sure that we're utilizing it in a fashion that is sustainable, something that we won't just burn through, or when we're finished with ESSER funding that we don't have anything to show for it. You've allowed us to move forward with full-day preschool, and somebody like Wendy Congleton is to be thanked for that, because she has wanted to see that happen. She's continued to work to make that happen. And now we're going to give her that opportunity to see that occur. So again, back to other people making something happen. Our Friday board information sessions, I think, are critical to what we're doing. It gives us great opportunity to talk with each other in a safe environment for you all to ask deep questions. So I think I owe Sonny Fintrez that, because I think it was something that he brought to the table. And just because somebody leaves doesn't mean we need to throw their things out. So I appreciate that. We've been working with KEDC not only to have them support us, but to have us support them. So when they've reached out, working on grants, we've jumped in with them, because that'll be a benefit to us, and it'll be a strong strategic decision on our part to make sure that the work that they do in a larger context can support us as well. And then this one seems a little small, but man, I think it was a strategic thing that really happened this year. When we did go back to school for the first time, we took kinder, 6th, and 9th grade students in by themselves. And that was a really cool experience, because those kids hadn't had a chance to walk through before. And within 30 minutes of us doing that, I was getting calls, people saying, can we do this every year, whether we have COVID or not? Can we do that? It was a tremendous strategic decision that just happened. And so I'll tell you, one of the things I learned when I moved back to Garrard County, I learned from Coach Hurt, was he once made a comment. I had no clue what it meant. I figured it out since then. Even a blind hog finds an acorn. So I would tell you that the early entry day was an acorn for us. When you move to standard 2, it's probably one of the more important components, and that's the world of strategic leadership. And we've created some teacher leaders this year. And the young lady sitting, I think, directly behind me, Laura Perry, has just taken that bull by the horns. Before she was here tonight, she was meeting with teacher leaders and working through, or with a teacher leader and working through the area of math. When we met with principals today, she talked to them about science and social studies and ELA. And I mean, she just loves this world of instruction. And it doesn't matter what idea I come up with. She's like, okay, let's go do it. And she makes neat things happen because of that. Again, these things don't happen without people like that. We're working diligently to have a district-wide curriculum. That was what we were sharing with principals this morning. Science is close to making a decision. We feel like math has made the decision. And this next coming year, those are the two focuses that we're going to have, math and science, because those are areas that need our attention. So instructionally, I think we're going down the right path. COVID hadn't stopped us from making good decisions about what we need to do moving forward to help our kids be better. We're going to make sure that our instructional plan connects back to that strategic plan, because if it doesn't, why have a plan, right? Let's have something that everyone understands and we make that connection. We'll work and continuing to work through scope and sequencing to make sure we know where our kids need to start this coming year, because all of our kids are behind. That's why the loss of learning recovery is so important. It's not just throw the kids in and take off from where we are. It's find out where they are so we can take off with them. And we'll continue to work through that this coming year. We've created 7 math interventionist positions. 6 of them are hired. The neat thing about that is all 6 of them have been hired from within our own buildings. So it's people that we already had in the district, which opens up the opportunity for us to bring new people into the district. So if somebody retires over the next few years, we have somebody that we're training to move into that role. And these interventionists are going to work really, really hard to not only push into kids, but also to support our staff. So at the end, the sustainability piece is not that we keep these positions, but that we have teachers that teach at a higher level than they did when we first started this. Our teacher leader positions that are in all of the schools has never existed before. This grew out of the high school principal saying, can I pay a little bit more through my SBDM money for my department chairs? And my answer was no, you can't. And I think that was a shock to him, because they said what we have to do is this in every school, not just at the high school, not just at the middle school, but we need teacher leaders at our elementary schools as well. And so we've made sure that that's happened. I mentioned earlier the full day preschool. Well, at an instructional standpoint, the sooner we get kids and the sooner we help them get on target, the fewer gaps we have to try to close. If you're ever going to close a gap, you close it early. It's a lot harder for our high school folks to try to close a gap. We have created or asking you to approve a virtual academy, and our focus is going to be trying to return homeschool folks back to us, not to just continue virtual for the sake of virtual. There'll be an interview process, and we think that that's the right thing to do instructionally, because we believe our kids need to be here with us. We've used the school needs assessment to make decisions this year. If you'll remember, we talked about it in December, missed the requirement. If you'll remember, it was supposed to be done in November. So learning experience for me, make sure that you've read closely what things are. So even if you're going to do the right thing, do it at the right time. When we moved into cultural leadership, I think that that's something that just bleeds through everything that we're talking about. And if we try to isolate it and only worry about cultural leadership and an isolated piece, we've really missed the point. So we've used those 6 advisory councils to give us feedback. I've done a weekly Fast Friday fact every Friday since the last Friday in June, with 2 exceptions. I didn't do it on Christmas Day and I didn't do it on New Year's Day, because I didn't figure anybody wanted to hear me on those days anyway. But there is zero doubt that if you want to go to YouTube and find out anything that I've said on those days, they're there, and they'll continue to be there. We've shared some historical facts. Jerry Perry has done a great job of digging things up. You know, I learned this year that Buena Vista was the first to have transportation to school, 4 wagons. How cool is that? We own something there. And so that helps us build a culture that says, hey, we were first at something. Well, let's be first at something else. Let's be the ones who do that. I shared earlier that sometimes listening to Dr. Carter is what I needed to do. And he came in and he said, you know what you need to do is a birthday card for everybody. I thought, are you kidding? Been one of the best things I ever thought about doing. It's amazing the people that send you a thank you for the birthday card. No effort, other than a little bit of time, no cost because Chris printed them and cuts them for me. So I mean, we're not spending a lot of money, but just something that simple that can impact the culture that goes on. We do monthly thank yous to people who are deserving of it. This past week, we highlighted our backs because nobody likes a back. A building assessment coordinator has incredible responsibilities. And if the only time we say anything about it is if they do something wrong. And so we took time to say thank you for that. And I hope that that's a culture shift for us as we continue to move forward. We connected to having a teacher of the month and students of the month. I don't know about you, but that's probably the most fun part of the board meeting is the minutes that we spend recognizing those people. And back in the summer, we did a Healthy at School session every single day because we wanted to develop the culture that said, we're going to find answers to this. We're going to move forward with it. We're going to take care of things in the right way. We've reviewed, at your all's request, every job description. And if we get this one approved by you on Thursday, I think we fixed them all and aligned them with the salary schedule so that everybody knows clearly what it is that a job is expected to do, how it's going to be compensated. Nobody should doubt if they want to work here, this is how it works. We're in the process of reimagining how we process our hiring, how we do that. We do not now hire anyone that hasn't been posted, okay? So if there was the idea that anything ever happened without us going through the right protocols, it doesn't. Everything goes through the right protocol, which is why we're bringing that one job description that we missed to you, because we don't want anybody to say, well, they didn't pay attention to that. We want to be above board and transparent on anything and on everything, not anything, everything. This year we hired 2 principals. I was fortunate to have worked with one of them very, very extensively in a couple of different locations, and the other one I knew a lot about. So we had 2 great hires, and I'll tell you what was really neat, and I don't know if you all know this, I don't know if I ever communicated this to you, but we were able to go into one of those and use the alternative process for hiring. The site-based council trusted me enough to let me throw a candidate at them, let them interview that candidate, and we moved forward with it because it was the right person for the job. That doesn't happen often. I'd say you could ask a lot of superintendents and they tell you they've never done it. Well, we did it in our very first year because there was a level of trust, not necessarily just with me, but with that candidate. And everybody knew that was the right candidate for that job. So kudos to that SBDM for taking a chance. Again, you allowed us to create a PR position that I think when we finish with it, you'll wonder why it took us so long to get that. Because in the world in which we live today, interactions through social media, interactions through regular media sources, we can't live without them anymore. You've allowed us to create an athletic director position that will cover both the high school and the middle school and try to bring unity to something that has at times been ununited. And so we thank you for doing that. We've transitioned into a nursing staff that is no longer ours, that we're contracting with, and that's a financial savings for the district. We've developed reopening plans and a hybrid plan. I don't know how many of them, but a whole bunch of them. And we'll continue to do that if that's what we have to do. The budget allocations that you've looked at, we've been clear about what we're doing with those. We've asked you to review the administrative salary index, and we've added that for 3 individuals, and we'll come back and look at it again someday. We've made budget adjustments that you heard about last night to make sure that we're taking care of our facilities, not through bonding potential, but through using money to keep them up rather than try to have to fix them up. We have developed ESSER 1 and 2 spending plans. 3 will come soon as soon as KDE releases that matrix to us. You're now getting a monthly bonding capacity update, so you know exactly what's available to you all the time. You held 3 community meetings to get information from our community about how to move forward with construction, and I think that that's going to earn you a lot of stripes with them because they're going to appreciate that. And we've utilized RFPs over and over to try to make sure we came up with the best prices for everything that we're doing. Collaboration is just a critical piece. And when I talk about the people from central office, that's a collaborative piece that's going on, but we've also collaborated outside. We immediately, back in the summer, started connecting again with BCTC and with Campbellsville. We'll continue to do that. We reached out to Asbury to talk about a Grow Your Own Teacher program, and while that hasn't taken off like we hoped, last week at our TikTok piece, we talked to Eastern about that. So if one group doesn't want to, we're going to find a group who does. That's the way we're going to approach that. Our partnership with the Mountain Comprehensive Care Counseling Service has paid dividends for us. They are utilized by our schools all the time, and they bring great services. At your KSBA event, if you flip the program over, they're on the back, and you see us listed right there with everybody else who's taking advantage of that. So those collaborations are huge. I talked about last summer and being healthy at school, but one of the things that we did was we met with the Garrard County Health Department every day. At 9 o'clock every morning, we were online with them because we didn't want to go down a path that they couldn't support, and we didn't want them going down a path we couldn't support. And they met with us every single day. So people like Carrie Noe, who collaborated with us, she learned to have trust in us, and we certainly learned to have trust in her and what they were trying to do. Again, I've mentioned some of these things in a couple of places because I want to be intentional to show that they fall in a variety of places. I don't want to ever do anything that's in isolation. I don't want us to do something that says this is about instruction. Well, if it's about instruction, how's it going to impact the culture? What happens in those areas together? So I think that's important for us. In the world of influential leadership, we had a new state representative, and we immediately were in his ear, and we've stayed in his ear. We have his cell phone, and we text him all the time. Last week, before the TikTok, we realized we needed a Kentucky flag. So we texted Josh and said, hey, we got to have one. So he made a trip to Frankfurt for us. So I don't know that we were influential there, but it's nice to know that you can talk to somebody like that and that they'll intervene on your behalf. You all had an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with him one night, and you've been with him in chamber meetings now where he's been recognized, things of that nature. He's sat in on a couple of our strategic plan meetings. So I think we have an honorary Garrard County, even though he's from Rockcastle. And I think that's important. We've started a conversation with the city and the county about developing a board where all three of these entities work together, because they're the three largest entities. And if we're not working together, again, we're probably pulling apart. So that's a work that we've begun. We've not reached any point with it yet, but it's a conversation that's ongoing. I mentioned the chamber recognition earlier. We ran a vaccination clinic here in this building on 2 separate days. Don't know that it could have gone any better. Our staff put it together with the health department, and it was perfect. I mean, again, you couldn't have done it any better than our staff did. Our training through Baird Financial with you all on a one-to-one basis, I hope gave you some insights about the process that we're going through, and knowing that they're willing to come and sit and talk with us, I think is important for all of us. Next year, you get a chance to tell me what my professional growth needs to look like. I'll throw the same things out to you that I've already suggested, and that's continuing to inspire a shared vision and to encourage the heart. But you all get to tell me later on how you'd like to see this work and what you want me to address with you next year and what you have as a vision for the district. And I'm excited to hear what that is. And if it's all 7, we'll do all 7. One of the things I'll share with you is I did nothing to get ready for this presentation. Okay, and I want you to hear that. This is just what we've done. This is not a dog and pony show. This is not a, what can I put together for you? This is just what we've done this year. And you all have been a part of it. Hardly anything that we talked about there should have been much of a surprise to you. It's just all in one location instead of spread out right now. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to share tonight, for the opportunity to be in this position, for the trust that you've placed in me. And like I said, over the course of the next few years, you see that trust was well placed and that you feel that kind of confidence in me. So I'd like to give Dr. Carter an opportunity to say anything that he'd like to say, or Matt, anything that they would like to say to you at this point before we tie this all up.
Thank you. Excellent job. First of all, you guys did a great job in hiring your new superintendent. No question about it. Actually, we were talking, Matt and I were talking earlier about the fact that I've worked with over 200 new superintendents in the last 10 years and I've had one fail. And he said, well, what about, how do you have such a great rate of success? And the answer is boards choose wisely. Boards choose someone who fits what their needs are in that district. And you folks have selected very wisely. We have seems like a constant turning over of new superintendents. We already have 21 vacancies for next year in Kentucky and 3 more that I'm aware of that haven't announced yet. So we're going to end up with probably 25 or more new superintendents next year. So I say to you, if you have a good superintendent, encourage them, support them. And I have a sense that this board team is truly a team. And that's not the case in a lot of school districts, unfortunately. In some cases, you have people who are more concerned about selfish interest, maybe in some cases, rather than what's good for the district. And I don't sense that's what's occurring here. I sense that you guys are in it for the right reasons and that the kids in this district are going to benefit from that. We met earlier as an ILP team and signed off on the official forms to renew Kevin's certification. And we're talking about the fact that in Kentucky, you have 2 kinds of horses. You have work horses and show horses. And I sense that you guys have hired for your superintendent a workhorse. And that's the kind I want. I don't want a superintendent who's about embellishing his or her resume or making themselves look good. You heard this guy all the way through his presentation. He was giving credit to other people. He didn't take credit for anything. There's an old saying in Kentucky and elsewhere, I guess, about still waters run deep. And I think that describes Mr. Stowe pretty well. He's very intelligent. He's very knowledgeable. He has connections all over the state from his time at KDE and other administrative positions, teaching positions. He is very highly respected across our state. And I can tell you this year with 17 new superintendents at cohort 9, he's one of the best, if not the best. So he's just, I'm going to be calling on him. We have not a law, but a rule that you have to be a superintendent for 3 years before we allow you to serve as a mentor for a new superintendent. So count on it, Kevin. 3 years from now, I'm calling. He's going to be mentoring new superintendents. And that in itself is a challenge, but it's also a compliment because we select the best to serve as mentors. Matt certainly has been one of the best this year. He's been an excellent mentor for Kevin. Appreciate that work. He'll receive his official certification certificate from the new Commissioner of Education in mid-July at the Golf House in Louisville. And hopefully that will be a pictorial time and a time when we can truly shake hands rather than bumping elbows. So we're looking forward to next year. Everyone's looking forward to next year to more return to a more normal schooling situation. Again, I can tell you that he's met all the requirements. You may be a bit surprised to learn that he and I have spent 17 days together throughout the course of the year, and with the other new superintendents, we've attended training almost 2 days every month throughout the year. Some of it has been online because of COVID, but the majority of it's been in person, spaced out and wearing masks. And in addition to that, I've been here. This is my 4th trip this year to this district. So he and I spent 21 days together this year. And so if you noticed him being out of the district, chances are he's with me. Next year, if he misses 21 days, you need to go looking for him. He's not with me. And the reality is, if you figure that out, that's 21 working days. That's over a month. So next year, he's going to have an additional month to serve here in the district and to do good things for the kids in Garrard County because of not having to spend time with the new superintendent training. So congratulations, Kevin.
Thank you.
Successful graduation and a great first year. This year has been very unusual in a lot of ways, very hard, not just for the superintendent, but for board members, for administrators, for teachers, for students, for parents. My wife, I have a 12-year-old at home, and my wife is anxious to get out of the teaching role next year and send him back to school. He got his COVID shot, his first one on Sunday, and he jumped up and down and said, "I'm so happy I can go see my friends in a few weeks." And she was even happier because she said, "I didn't go to college to be a teacher. I went to be a journalist." So she's looking forward to shedding that role. And but anyway, back to Kevin. One of the best. Congratulations to him, and congratulations to you for your selection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak for just a moment. Dr. Carter did say he was the best in this superintendent's cohort. He doesn't just say that because he didn't say that to my board about me. So you guys you can take that one as a legit. But you know it's sincere when he says that. Yeah, absolutely. But I do, Dr. Carter also made the comment that that Kevin has really owned the work, that gives credit to the team and the board, and that's exactly where it should go. And I've felt that absolutely out throughout the entire year. The thing that I think has made him a great hire and a great superintendent is he's passionate about kids, and he's passionate about this community. You can tell in every conversation, he wants people to know the quality things that are happening here, and he's always leaning forward, trying to make sure that things continue to improve for Garrard County. So I do think that's really special when you can get a superintendent that is not only that committed to the students, but that committed to the community. So I think that's a really big plus, and that's going to just continue to serve Kevin very well. I'm one of the few that can say I've been in his shoes this year, and it has been an incredibly challenging year. I have a couple more years on Kevin in this role, but it was a commitment of every bit of energy and time, and it pulls you in every direction, making bigger decisions than you're used to making so frequently, and some of those split decisions. And the thing that I've really grown to appreciate about Kevin, he's obviously a very intelligent man, but he has a very calming presence about himself. And sometimes that alone is going to help propel everyone forward. So my hat's off to Kevin this year, and I just feel like he's done an absolute exceptional job. And I feel like I've made a good connection with somebody that's going to be a really good resource for Jessamine County too. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm done.
Oh, I was just thinking while y'all were saying that, we were at an annual school board meeting in Louisville this past weekend. And I don't know how many, not just superintendents, that came up to me that I've known over years and said, "Wow, you guys have struck gold in Kevin." And we were at a dinner with Sherman Carter Barnhart, and one, I can't remember that guy's name, came up to her table. Were you sitting there? Anyway, we told Mr. Stoll about it. He said, "Man, you guys hit the jackpot." Yeah, you remember. Well, thank you all very much. If you've completed yours, I guess at this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session.
Mr. McQuarrie made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Hurt seconded. All in favor, please let it know on an uplifted hand. All right, we are now in executive session. Thank you very much, and the board has just did our evaluation of our superintendent. I'd like to,
We gotta come out,
I know.
executive.
So I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session back into our special call
I'll
meeting.
make that motion,
Mr.
Mr.
McQuarrie made the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hurt made a second, all in favor, let it be known by uplifted hand. Thank you, we are back into our regular meeting at this time. And I'll share with the public that during our evaluation of a superintendent, we evaluate him on 7 standards. And the average on each standard, which is on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being the lowest and 4 being the highest. And our evaluation, overall evaluation of Mr. Stoll is a 3. I'll entertain a motion at this time to adopt that evaluation.
I'll make a motion to adopt the evaluation.
Dr. Lamb made the motion,
There you go.
and Ms. Davis second. All in favor, let me know by lifted hands. All opposed, the same sign. And that concludes our business tonight. And so now, unless anybody has anything else, we will adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. McQuarrie made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Hurd seconded. All in favor, let me know by lifted hand. Thank you all very much. Our meeting is adjourned.
And Mr. Hurt, I think, has a award ceremony to go to.